Good morning, everybody. This is Jordan with Conquer Trading and Investing. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not, welcome back. Do subscribe. Join us on the inside. This episode today is probably going to be the most important to date. I look forward to sharing with you. I'm so excited. Do remind me towards the end of the episode to make sure that we cover the current price action and TA. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful masterclass to share together. I want to start off though before you know what? Did you see the interview yesterday? I look forward to watching this today between it's Bitcoin stock to flow, lengthening cycles, diminishing returns, a discussion with Plan B on Benjamin Cowan's The Cryptoverse. Looking forward to watching that discussion take place today. And then Ben has invited us on the show on Monday to discuss what we're doing over here at CTM. So I'm looking forward to having those conversations. And I want to use this video as a way to kind of explain. Did you see the titling? Front running the 4-year cycle, CTM, Hive Mind, technical analysis. It's how we put it all together. To start it off, I want to start off with a discussion I had yesterday with Ted and Ian discussing the CTM Meta Model. And you can see that Hive Mind in action. Let's start with this today, everyone. Let me go ahead and find a way over to switch over.
I just wanted to mention a couple things here because, this model, I'll be honest with you, if you just walk in to the CTM community, it can be confusing, right? And I wanted to take a few minutes and just quickly, we tried to do this last time, but I don't think the words came out right because I think a lot of people are still confused. Let me just say that the meta model is really just a combination of models. Meta means many, model means model. You may, if you're in the science world, you may have seen the words meta-analysis, right? Where they take basically, like they do it for cancer studies, right? They'll look at 46 different cancer studies, right? And then conglomerate it all together and write one study and say, what were the general findings? And my hope with this was to kind of pick out the gems that Jordan and Ian and others have been talking about over the many months leading up to this and put them on one chart so we could see something. So for right now, what this model has is it has, I believe, 3 different views into the world. It has Plan B, stock to flow, which is essentially, that's this model here.
Yep.
And then it also has these rainbow lines here. And I'm going to call it rainbow, but I don't think that's the word because there's another word. The rainbow model is actually a logarithmic model. These are really just logarithmic trend lines that
from CTM, right? We did
from CTM
together. Yeah.
Right. This is from Patrick and other people that over the time have kind of put this together. And so these are just support and resistance lines that if you draw them out through the entire cycle, they've served as support and resistance in the multiple cycles. So they're on here. And then the final one is these bars of green. Now the bars of green are confusing to people, but let me just simplify that as much as possible. If we take a look, you'll see there's several different having models on here. And if I just turn all of these off, except for, let's just say one, let's just say this one, we do one other thing here and I go in here and I say, let me turn the Plan B off. And also,
wow,
yeah, that's it.
That looks solid right there right now.
So that is Ian's model.
Right.
That's Ian's model right there. And the only thing that I'm doing is we've discussed over. What's that, Ian?
I'd say it's mine.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Yeah. So so what the only thing that the extra green does is that, you see we're basically aligned on the 20th here. And I believe, Ian, we're scaling right now to the halving date. At least that's what I have now. Because if we scale to the low, you'll see these lines really just collapse together. So what the other lines do is that are just the assumption of, well, are we scaled correctly? So all of these other things basically just add on critical dates that we've defined in time. So those critical dates are the market low, which we really don't talk about too much, but if you look at charts, BTC or others, they have a low, the current low of the cycle, the prior all-time high break, the halving, of course, which is actually before the high time break, but the halving, then the prior all-time high break, and then the mid-cycle low. And so what you do is when you pop these things on, basically, all we're doing is they're just scaling from those different points in time to give us the price range differences. Because I think we don't really know if, like, for example, if there's a huge blow off, super liquidity event here that comes into all this, there's a possibility that we may end up outside of the range.
Yes.
And if we don't look at all of those possibilities, if we look at just Ian's, we would just be stuck at this top blue line. So this is just providing more breadth. That breadth actually worked, kind of coming into here. If we actually backed up to the all-time high market, you would actually see that this white line smashed right in the middle of that model. And then I'll add one last thing. The little green box here is the price ranges that have been discussed over time. I believe, we've looked at this, the minimum of 140, which I think is, for Jordan was his calculated, kind of that's where his exit position was. I had calculated at 160, so that's within this box. The yellow and red bands are from the rainbow model, so that's where we're targeting. And then the high, I believe, Jordan, was from your notes of 450. So that's kind of all this model is, and it's just a glom of everything together. Now, let me speak to some of the concerns that I've heard over time, because we've heard that, it's not tested, there's error, there's all this stuff, and I'm going to tell you, absolutely, there absolutely is. And the reason why is because Bitcoin does not have much data. Now, I know a lot of people are going to go, well, you have 10 years of data. Well, yes, we do have 10 years of data, but we really only have 2 cycles of 4 years each to really look at. And so from my point of view, we only really have 2 data points, right? And so the best we can do is basically look at the data and try to figure out what things have made sense based on the current presentation of the data. And right now the assertion is that it looks like we are on average of 2012 and 2016, the price has been riding in between it. So what we do over time is we basically select those critical points, for example, the prior all-time high break, and now we're at the mid-cycle low, where we line things up and we just basically look at the price to make sure we're on track. And I will say this, earlier on, like when we were talking in the January timeframe, and even earlier, when we were looking at some of these models, and this model wasn't out yet, but I think it was going around in the Discord, private chats and things of that nature. My goal here was, this was a boundary violation model. And I think Ian has said it right. I mean, a model is just as good when it fails, because it tells you something is wrong. And that was my goal here, to say, well, if I don't want to believe anything Jordan has been going on about for the last many months, I can take a look at this model. And if this line is sticking in the middle of this, well, you know what? We're probably on track. And so I think we've been on track. And in fact, let me just do one real quick thing here to show you something, to show you how we kind of could see that happening real time. So if I back out all this stuff, this is Ian's model, right? And I say, okay, well, let me just go back to the prior all-time high break, right? Well, look, we were doing fine. Oh, then something happened. Right. And I remember when Ian put this model out, because Ian was pretty adamant. He goes, we need to stick with the all-time high break for as long as it's possible to show that, like, well, it looks like the model's off and we need to consider something else. And I think about this time, Jordan, we started talking about, okay, well, when's the right time do we adjust? And there was lots of conversation, between all of us saying, when do we change it? When you don't want to change it too much, right? We want to change it at the right time. And so you might have noticed, for those in the CTM community who have been here for a while, that the team went silent for a while during this. It was probably our error. We probably should have been saying during this time, we're waiting for the dip. But that's effectively what we were doing. We were waiting for this dip, right? And when that dip happens, we basically, changed the model so that we're now at the mid-cycle low. And now we're here.
But Ted, before you continue, at the time we did the interview with the Root, and he was talking about how you line the cycle up, also from the prior cycle to all-time high. In that interview, in that conversation with him, and I don't remember when that took place. That was, I'm not really sure, but we could find out.
Yeah.
I was telling him, look, what we're trying to do is line things up from that mid-cycle low. And when we thought the low was in, that's how we were lining those cycles up. And I was telling him, listen, I love the work you're doing. Please go ahead and take a look at that yourself. If you start, you don't have to say that we did it or anything like that. It's not about who was first. We're just trying to get as many. But for quite a while, it just happened that it wasn't until July that low was put in. You had no idea ahead of time what it would be and couldn't line them up from the low until it happens.
I will accept, and I think all of us here accept, the criticism that, hey, the model has not performed well in certain points in time. And I'm like, yeah, I think actually, if I were to really look at this model, this thing is good at predicting, right, the segments of time we're targeting. So when we were at the prior all-time high break, we suspected that the model would likely not do so well after the mid-cycle low. and we probably would have had to do something about it. And that's what exactly happened. And the same goes for the halving. Going from the halving to the prior all-time high break, you'll see that same sort of breaking happening, right? So this model is not intended to be like, well, we set it up at the halving and do it. Now, I will say this, you can go in here and like if I just take a look at the halving, for example, right? And I switch this and I go back and I scan this out a bit.
Right.
I mean, you can kind of see we're still okay way back here, right? We're on lower low, but something, the mid-cycle low is definitely something we had to adjust for, right? Mm-hmm. And if you go look at other people's models, the simple models, like this is, I consider this a simple model. This is not like AI or, you know, we're not doing any sort of machine learning or we're not doing Fourier transform. This is just, you know, we're looking at prior history and making some assumptions. But if you look at people like Raul's basically doing the same thing. He's just overlaying this line on top and going, looks like we're on the way to the target here, right? Ours is just providing a little bit more detail on that. Now, with all that said, I wish we could provide some other data on here that was incorporating blockchain somehow. I've actually looked at it. There's actually ways for us to pull that data in. But frankly, I'll just be honest with you. There's so much going on here now. I think it would add confusion.
We worked this out months ago, and we really did all the hard work that's just, you know, transpiring now as it's coming out of the mid-cycle low. If you know, is the liftoff point another place that we line these cycles up? We don't know what happens between now and the projected liftoff point. We're looking for that double wave into the liftoff. Listen, I don't know how price gets there. We're going to find out in the months ahead. But do we consider lining this up as we do arrive to the low of the liftoff, or
Yes.
or where the pullback starts?
Yes. And the reason for that is and this comes back to the last cycle, super cycle, all those other narratives that can still happen. You need to see price action coming out of the liftoff phase. If it isn't aggressive enough, then you need to wait longer, or you need to be very mindful that you're not going to get enough of a top to create a bottom. Mm-hmm. That's my concern as far as which narrative plays out over the next 4 years to the next halving. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, do we get what Will is suggesting where you get multiple mini bear seasons along the next 2 or 3 years? I think that's what he's really calling for. By then, the time that you actually have the halving, it's going to have a less of an effect because because price hasn't had a massive 85% drop. You haven't had a massive accumulation phase of a year, and then the halving is going to kickstart that next cycle. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I will do this in the background. Each dip that we get, I will line it up on that dip, just like I've lined it up on this dip, but I've lined them up scaled to the dip. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I want to see the magnitude of the price rise out, because I truthfully didn't expect it to come out of the mid-cycle dip as bullish as it had. I expected it to come out more like 2012. And that's why I had them all lined up on the bottom, because I wanted to see the trajectory out. And the reason that I say I'll do that in the background is just because I've got the ability now to do that, because Ted created this beautiful model that I can move things around and do that with. Whereas before I was doing this in Google, and it was horrific. Yeah. So I mean, it makes, because I'm also aware of like Ken's model where he's saying, so we got the shakeout that happened. If you line everything up on the halving, then the shakeout starts when we hit the 2012 top.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and they all line up. So yep. Ken's model is that we get to October, which is the end of the 2016 cycle, and you get that same psychological move up and dip. So so that's another thing I'm looking for. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm looking for it. Mm-hmm. And then as we see each dip, you line it up and then see the magnitude that you come out at. And if you start to see price action magnitude from what you've seen before, you can say, oh, no, we are actually starting liftoff, and we are going to go into a blow off top.
Right.
Yeah. And we need to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
Or, oh no, we're at, price is going up and everyone's freaking out, but it's not going up as fast as, as an exponential blow off top phase, because you've seen that already. We're just coming out of the dip, and and it looks really aggressive, but it's not really. Look, it's done it twice already.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the CTM Hive Mind, it is so beautiful. It is an honor. It is a pleasure to work alongside all of you, right? Rico, that includes everyone, all of you, each and every one of you here today. My wife, I spoke with my wife yesterday, and I was telling her, well, it's she's wondering why the viewers are, moderate. And I was like, it's kind of elevated. And that's the truth. But those that invest the time, for sure, working together, we could all lift each other up. It was the point of starting this community, this channel, late 2019 to begin with, right? Good morning, everyone. Jordan, CTM family, the moderators, Ted, Ian, Brandon, Heath, Alan, Al, Misconfig, Greg, on and on and on. Each and every one of you adding to that hive mind. It's one of the greatest assets of this community. There's no question about it. You seeing it being displayed there between Ted, Ian, and myself's discussion. It belongs in the title here, right? That hive mind. It's that technical analysis, that other sharp skill, sharpest arrow in the quiver that gives us an enormous advantage. I truly am interested to listen to this interview, but I don't know that it's going to be intellectually stimulating for myself. I say that not coming from a place of a lack of humility. My wife is like, that's not humble to say that content's elevated. Well, it's not a question of humility. It's just a question of, what is. And that's all. It's not a question of humility. It's a question of what is. And that's what we're looking at. Listen, with the great asset is that everyone here is consulting all views at all times. And I'm trying to focus my time and attention what I believe to be the clearest and greatest signal. It's what we do here together on CTM each and every day. And it's not so black and white where you could be like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? It's evolving. It's an ever evolving model, right? But it's what's giving me the ability when I look at this, right? When I look at what's going on over here, and as price was crashing down over here, do you remember the general feeling in the crypto community? There was a lot of fear and uncertainty. There was a lot of fear. And do you remember the awareness that we kept over here talking about how ultimately this was going to be a bear trap, that it was the mid-cycle shakeout, that we were just mid-cycle? It's that same awareness that allowed me to position in, and the majority of you, when Bitcoin was just getting ready after the halving to break out technically into that bull market. Right? And then when the technical breakout occurred, we were already fully positioned. I myself, half of my net worth, now that includes owned real estate, 3-bedroom apartment, Plaza Carzo, Blanco, Mexico City, right? Carlos Slim Jr. living, in the same building, prime real estate in Mexico. And then that was including that, half my net worth into Bitcoin at that time, spot Bitcoin. Made sure I was fully positioned, understanding now what the full year cycle was. When I first got into Bitcoin and I was all like bullish about Bitcoin, I didn't understand Bitcoin. 2016, I held through an 85% drawdown. And I didn't know what was going on. It was like crazy. The volatility in this thing I never experienced before. I wanted to learn a lot more. I spent all of my time studying this thing. I have a background 20 plus years in the market. I had a huge advantage understanding money, the monetary system, understanding the central banking system, the fractional reserve central banking system, one of the most unjust systems in the world, right? Bitcoin is a lot of thing to a lot of people. It's fair and just, where you might come for the price, but you're going to stay for the freedom. It's the orange pill, Anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. That's not what we are talking about, though, is making sure that we saw what was happening. That's front running this cycle. It led me to understanding that there was this cycle that takes place in Bitcoin. It happens every 4 years, every 210,000 blocks, and it's the halving event that causes it. Now, whether or not in the future that halving event will continue to cause a 4-year cycle in Bitcoin, right, we'll continue to monitor that for sure. But this cycle, the investment that I made, was for sure not only front running this halving, this bull market that was to ensue, but after we had the breakout, right, I was then able to go ahead and spend this time just accumulate more position, accumulating, and then going ahead and borrowing against it, against my Bitcoin, against my holdings, to buy more Bitcoin. And then as we had the resumption off around $12,000, $13,000, to do that again, putting me in a massive position in strength. When you get from this position to this position, a 4x or a 6x with the leveraged one, right? And now you're coming in halfway and coming out into that block. You're talking about you can't do that if you don't understand the 4-year cycle. If you don't understand the 4-year cycle and what's happening, you don't have that same awareness to be able to front run what happens next, right? The beauty of it is that you know when you're wrong. Do you remember over here, May 14th, price was seemingly coming out of the V, what could have been the mid-cycle low, 30% drawdown, price coming out of it. And then when price came back down, well, I knew that wasn't a V. I knew that's not the price action that I see coming out the low of the mid-cycle. And I said, hey, so something's wrong. By the way, this whole period used for trading, this was, way more of an X multiple than the borrowed Bitcoin and of course the spot Bitcoin. But at that day, when this was trading outside of the expectations of the model, it was, hey, listen, stop trading, get neutral. That's the advantage of having a model. The model is not so that you know what is going to happen in the future with precision, right? But it lets you know when something's off and something's wrong. And at that point, you manage your risk accordingly. It's all about managing your risk from the very beginning. When I took my position, by the way, it was understanding the age that I am, how much time I have in the future, my family, right? What the risks were, understanding Bitcoin could go to zero. It doesn't make it easy. Putting half your net worth into Bitcoin is never easy. It's not an easy decision. It's not one that someone does lightly, especially when you're responsible for a family, right? It's a calculated risk, understanding where your risk was the whole time. And now, so now you're over here. By the way, at this point, I could withstand an 85% drawdown and still be above my average buy-in, right? Because I added to the dip in this area when Bitcoin was off 50%. I told you all why everyone was talking about the bear market, X, Y, and Z. I said, I'm buying Bitcoin. I'm not even, I'm dollar cost averaging in mid-cycle. I didn't plan on it. It brought my average cost up a little bit. And I, we'll see. It looks like a smart play coming into the remaining part of this cycle over here. And we're still experiencing that cycle, right? Now, these guys, and they're great, have added so much. We talk about, tomorrow you'll see a little bit more footage of this amazing, wonderful conversation with Ian and Ted. And we talk about stock to flow and how I talk about how crucial he was in helping me understand the 4-year cycle with the color coordinated months until the next halving. And we spoke about that a lot on this channel together. They've added so much over here. It's easier for most people, this is grain of salt on Twitter, to invest after watching a 4x gain and buy in for the next 2x, right? That's what we were just talking about over here. Us having the ability of using the 4-year cycle and then looking at it and saying, how could I front run that expected supply shock? And at what points should I be taking positions? At what point should I be adding to positions? And at what point should I be exiting positions? Right? Yes, it's true. Most people, as Bitcoin makes a new all-time high at $65,000, they're going to want to buy Bitcoin, and guess what? There is still plenty of upside. They're gonna, if they're able to exit during that cycle peak, then they're going to do really well. And it's going to be probably more than a 2x, right? It'll probably be anyway, it'll probably be something like a 4x for those buying at the new all-time high. That's substantial. But if you positioned yourself in and position yourself in, before the breakout, front running the halving, after the technical breakout of the bull market, right? And then out of that mid-cycle low is another time that you've seen me do that, is the time to do it. You're looking at doing, an 8x, a 10x, yeah, great. But you're looking at doing like, right. So anyway, what else? When I look at this chart, by the way, right, I saw like maybe 5 minutes of a clip yesterday at some point in the middle of this video. And this is the chart from Plan B that we're looking at. And, when some people look at this chart, they make the observation that we are seeing diminishing returns. I mean, everyone knows that we're only looking at 2 data points. That goes for everything, right? What else could you do? There's only been 2 4-year cycles so far. You're looking at the cycle peaks and you're saying, or most people are saying, well, that's diminishing in return. Not only that, it's actually lengthening out. I want to share with you the way that I viewed that when I first look at this chart, when I went ahead and ran the numbers. Let's take a look. Before, here comes the third halvening. We're about 4 months away. The third halvening. What's going to happen after the third halvening? You guessed it. Bitcoin's going to go on to make new all-time highs. Where might that high be? All right, let's do this. Remember these numbers with me: $32, $1,163, and $19,892. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the $32, and then we had the high in the first halvening of $1,163. We get a factor of 36. 32 times 36 equals 1,163. So remember this number 36 now. Now we're going to take and input in that high, 1,163, the high of the second halvening. And this time we divide it, we get a factor of 17. All right, first we had 36. All right, divided by 2 is 18. All right, so this time we have a factor of 17, little less than half. So now what happens here? Let's take the high, 19,892. Let's divide the 17 by 2 again. First time we divided 36 by 2, you get 18, right? So we took away 1, we had 17. Here we're taking 17 divided by 2, right? We get 8.5. So we'll just use 8. So let's times the high times a factor of 8 this time. We get $159,000. So $160,000. All right, let's take a look at this. $160,000 we have as the next possible high of Bitcoin. Before, here comes. I looked at this chart, right? All I did was run the numbers and say, all right, well, if there's, 1/3 of a return over here, what's 1/3 of again? Where does that put me? $160,000. Okay, let me make sure before this Bitcoin bull market starts here, front running the 4-year cycle, that if price reaches $140,000, I could say I achieved everything I set out to do, as this all unfolded ahead of time. Now, as it was unfolding, things changed, right? What did we see? We have the uber easy monetary and fiscal policy, right? What we saw was, as Ian pointed out, like months right before the halving was the dollar liquidity crisis, and the Fed's response and the central banks, their banking system all around the world, their response was absolutely massive and continues to be until this day. The QE purchases between the ECB and the Federal Reserve, you're looking at $240 billion monthly alone. It's absolutely massive, right? And what's happening because of that? Are we seeing Bitcoin underperform, right? Because I did the math expecting a lower return over here, but is that what I'm seeing? Well, it depends how you measure it. When I measured these things from the halving until that mid-cycle low, this cycle's outperforming this past cycle. Coming up into them, you could say, well, they're closely aligned, they're in sync. We're not seeing this current cycle showing diminishing returns the whole way through. And now I could see at this point mid-cycle, oh yeah, well, it's lagging here a little bit. But the way that I look at this and the way that I try to get all of you to look at this and the way that we present this is looking at this as looking at the most important trend line in crypto. That's the mid-cycle. Here was the most important trend line in crypto in that 2013 cycle. And here it was in that 2016 cycle, right? And it's the price action coming out of there into the end you need to focus in on right now. The volatility this current cycle has been greater than the last cycle. It's attributed to that uber easy monetary policy. It's attributed to the super easy liquidity conditions out there. By the way, we're always watching for where that risk is. Ted yesterday, sharing with me, what's going on in the markets. Perhaps we're looking at some type of the market's always climbing that wall of worry. You have to be able to take away that signal and noise, factor it all in. It's why we spend the time we do together, right? To make sure that we get it right. It's an distinct and enormous advantage we have. Listen, if you're just joining us and you haven't yet took the moment to smash the like button, please do help support the channel. It's greatly appreciated. I expect coming out of this that we're going to see a bazooka move. It's going to be the consolidation over here. The longer the consolidation, the longer the race, right? And you could see in 2012 that massive consolidation period, and then that massive move up. In 2017, it was a nice consolidation. It was 2 or 3 months, and the move up was still amazingly nice. This one over here though, it looks like it's going to be bigger than the last. I edited the chart, the targets a little bit from the Meta Model, and I just placed in the targets that I'm looking at over here that I've maintained firmed with my price predictions. I showed you how I worked it out along the way, how I got there, how I'm there. We're well within range. We're right within range. And it's like almost like you're like falling out of an airplane, right? I don't even know how fast you would go if you're falling out of an airplane before your chute lifts. And you're trying to like thread a needle, with a rifle through a window or something crazy like that. But that's what we're trying to do. And that's what I think we're going to get it. What else? I have to find a way to be able to present that to everybody else, in an hour. And that's not an easy feat. Obviously, maybe not the most polished, not caring about you got to follow the incentives, what's going on, right? There's no other purpose of this channel than to really help as many people as possible. Why helping myself have that crystal clear analysis that I desire and that I want, right? So anyway, I rambled this morning, Did you see who missed the t-shirt though? Did you miss the t-shirt in the video that we saw this morning? Did you see my t-shirt over there? I asked a friend, could you have your kids hook up the store for me? I want to be able to have my Taco Tuesday t-shirt. I want the mug. Could you go ahead and set up, a way to drop ship that for me so that I could, have one myself? There's a link below in the description. It's under Head Snack. You'll find Taco Tuesday and the Conquer Trading Investing mug and merch. Stoked about finally having that. And, that brings us to the TA of what's going on. Let's take a look at this. I want to focus where we left off, and that was me playing. I wasn't looking to take a short trade whatsoever. I explained to you if this trend line did break short, that most likely this move would be faded before we reach the line of support. Now, it's entirely possible price come in and test the line of support, right? That would be the bearish case for Bitcoin if they're able to break that trend line. At that point, that would be the bears actually gaining momentum. And then what they're able to do with that, we will see, right? That's not my base case. That could happen though. Watch out for it, right? I believe this move gets faded and we come up. If you're watching what's happening though, and you're just doing this for a learning exercise, you could see that once you had the break, this trade is stopped out. It's stopped out on that candle right there. Once it's stopped out, what I do is I go ahead and this is like, you got to be able to translate to higher time frames right now in your head. You have to put the time in yourself. I can't just, do it all for you. But then you come to the low over here. You come to the low and then you can see you had another entry over there breaking short, right over there on the breakout, and now the stop is that high over there. And that's where you are right now. It's taking those small stops. It's limiting your risk and then just trying to push those trades. I mean, if you wanted to trade this, you can. I don't see why you would want to. You'll do better off just, positioning in correctly at the most opportune times rather than trying to trade back and forth all the time. Unless you get it, perfect. And even then, you're not going to do as well. That's why it all matters, what we're doing here, is because there's a difference between understanding or front running, knowing how to manage your risk from the very beginning and the risk you're taking, and then doing life-changing things. And there's a difference between just trying to stock the flow. It's very general. It's very vague. And I guess if your time preference is very long, but you could just hold Bitcoin for the next 12 years. And that's a great strategy. We cover it, we cover it extensively, making sure everyone understands that one fundamental strategy and that they have that in place before anything else. But you could do, I don't know. I don't understand why other people don't see it. And, that's what I struggle with, because once I am able to see clearer what's the difficulty from getting others to see what we do here quicker, at that point, we could do a better job in communicating it and helping more people understand, because I don't see anywhere in the space anything, whatever adjective you want to use to describe it, being shared out there. And it's important. And it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to do it with all of you. I wish right now, did you see Alan Au's thread on Twitter that he just put out with the 60-day volatility? I wish that I could just send him a link during these live sessions, which I have the ability to do with this software, and then get him on to speak about it. That would be great. If you haven't, though, go to my profile on Twitter. You'll see the first tweet. It's Alan Au's tweet, and it's a good one. He continues to bring we were talking about yesterday, the advantage of Alan is that not only is his on-chain analytics games, as strong as anyone else's. Did you see all the work he put out weekly as we were mid-cycle, confirming at all points through multiple different indicators, on-chain indicators of why we were mid-cycle? But he also has that advantage of having that CTM technical training. So he's able to put both together. And when you're able to put both together, and that's what I hope, if we could get these other guys, if we could get William and Willy Woo and to understand, it's a difference between having the definition of technical terms, or being able to explain order flow to someone and having the ability to be able to trade that masterfully. It's a huge, and the latter very few have here at CTM. It's shared and the seeds are sown. All right. What else? No, PD, go to PD Capital, go to my profile. It's the last retweet. So it's the first one. Craig, not today. Not today. Tomorrow we're going to have a training session, actually, CTM, and it's going to be sharing that full discussion with Ian and Ted. We'll do that all together. We'll watch it together. Amazing stuff over there. It was my favorite conversation of the week for sure. And but yeah, and that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, we covered everything. No, we didn't. What about the upside? Let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at what's going on over here. Right now we're in, I don't want to call it a correction because this is very small time, very small wave. This is the line to watch out for. That's why it's big and it's yellow for you. So you all know, as long as above that line, the bulls are in control. The bulls have broken the most important trend line in crypto. That number one is essential because it's possible we come back and retest that, right? And that anything above it is just uber bullish. Above this trend line is uber bullish, right? So when would you be looking if you, like a lot of people, held through the emotions of chasing price the whole way up? Because CTM, as strong as could be, made sure everyone know this trade right over here. This was the first trade I took. I stopped out 10%. On a decent size account, and then I took the next entry over there, and I show you it's a 50-to-1 risk to reward of a trade that was available at the time, And that's if you're taking profit around $90,000. If you're taking profit around $90,000, what are you doing? So, you know, what the risk to reward of that trade coming out mid-cycle becomes towards this cycle peak, that's the difference of what we do here in front running the 4-year cycle compared to what goes on everywhere else out there, you know, and that says it all. So let me just dive in a little bit clearer onto that 2-hour time frame, onto the candles. You know, this is what you're just looking and waiting for that break, snap back up for this to recover. It could happen at any time between here and this trend line support. That most likely holds if we go down and test that far. I personally am going with that this is a pretty strong move. I don't think that we come all the way down there. If we do, it's still, you know, waiting for that break of the trend line to show that price is then getting ready to hold the support. This is where you manage your risk. If all of a sudden, right, you break down over here, at that point, sellers are gaining momentum. You might want to, at that point, take a hedge using the top over here as however you're managing your risk as your stop loss, you know. I know. I don't know why I say you know. I know. But there it is, you know. So, you know, 436 likes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the support of the channel. Thank you for what we shared together. There was comments yesterday about, you know, listen, it's unfortunate. I'm not going to be able to continue this journey. Other people were like, the journey was absolutely legendary and epic, and I'm grateful for it. And that's and all things should continue to morph and change and evolve. And it's not as if the journey's, you know, changing whatsoever, right? Everything that has been put out here on the public is enough to change anyone's life. You don't need the videos you could go back and watch the videos. It was done there. It's all there, and it's all anyone needs. And everyone should have that long-term time frame awareness. They need to change. If the $50 a month is excessive for you for where you live in the world, right? Well, first of all, you have the internet now, so you're not locked into whatever whatever current situation you are with your local currency wherever you are. You have the ability to work on the interweb, and you should be taking advantage of that global connection we all have together. But at the same time, then you know what you need to do, right? Instead of spending $50 a month to be able to participate in the live streams with us and privy to all the work that we do together and be a part of and sharing what we're sharing, you know, daily. Okay, take that money and make sure you continue dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin. 10 years from now, I am certain for those next 2 years, you're going to be putting yourself a life-changing position, a life-changing, or at least I'm not certain of it. I don't know of anything else you could do that would be smarter or more calculated or less risk adverse, right? I can't find it. I want to find it. Remember I used to show you the Neo, right? I used to show you the orange pill and the blue pill and the chart of Bitcoin and the chart of the dollar. I wish I could find this screenshot again. Here it goes. It's Bitcoinator. I'll look over on the Twitter over there. Hopefully I could find that image. It's an important one for keeping everyone focused, right? Boom, 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 boom. Jen, all the videos on this channel, and you could just, you know, just go back and watch the last 4 months. Go back, watch the last 6 months. You know, do it on 1.5 speed. It's go back and watch the last 2 weeks. You know, can you imagine? The mid-cycle, I think, really showed a lot of people who has the clearest understanding of Bitcoin, you know, and those that are making it up as they go. We'll see as it continues forward. Thanks for the morning. Thanks for the session. I want to play some Honeymoon over there and see if there's anything else that I want to talk about before getting off with you this morning. Rico. I need to look more into that. What? All right, everyone. So I will. I'm gonna play the clip from yesterday, the 2 or 3 minutes where it's talking about the changes of what's happening. They'll be happening over the next, whenever they happen over the next couple of weeks. We'll be talking about that. Obviously, that's not an issue. Everyone will know in advance. So for everyone else who was here yesterday and knows that, have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for sharing this time. But I want to go ahead for everyone else and just play that clip from yesterday. Back up 1 second before we move forward, right? It's about prioritizing. I've been talking to everyone and saying, look, something's going to change over the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it. Laser focused clarity that we have. Jesse, I'm playing. Back up 1 second before we move forward. Right? It's about prioritizing. I've been talking to everyone and saying, look, something's going to change over the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it. This is it right over here, right? Starting with a live CTM training session rather than a public one means you are focused on the community and they get you at your best. It's rather difficult to prepare for an hour live stream of such high quality content every day. And then also, 15 minutes later, jump on for another CTM live session. I want to give CTM my everything. You always seem much more relaxed and in tune when you're doing a CTM session compared to public. Many times in public sessions, your thoughts get derailed by a troll or negativity or having to defend your comments. My wife yesterday, she saw, I pulled up something on YouTube. I was showing yesterday my wife. I want to share this with you really quick. All right, hold on 1 second. I was showing her how, hey, listen, do you remember going back a month ago or longer than that? Do you remember over here? This is over a month ago when I said, listen, what's going to take Bitcoin to its new all-time highs? There's going to be a new narrative. And I said that narrative is going to happen 3 weeks from now when Elon sits down with Jack and they're going to say, Bitcoin incentivizes clean energy. Bitcoin's green, ESG stamp of approval. And then just to show that I knew what was up, do you remember how dark it was during this point in time and how everyone was like so bearish? And then I streamed it. Bitcoin incentivizes clean energy, right? Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk. And there it is. I started telling people the risk is to the upside. Get ready. The bull is getting ready to run. And then here we are. Boom, out of it. And I was showing my wife, just, listen, in everything, you want to consult those who have a history of being right? Just, showing with love what's up over here. And she's like, wait, only 10,000 views. What's going on? And I was like, I paused for a second and I was like, well, it's pretty elevated stuff. I don't think that many could keep up. You know, I honestly don't. I think it's way above their capacity and potential. That's the truth. And even a lot of people that are very involved in the space, who people, you know, are very intelligent, they're still not able to get it. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Many are called, few are chosen. Who we have working together is absolutely extraordinary. I can't believe that was a taste of it this morning, just showing you Brad's position over there, right? Anyway, let's keep this going as I keep going over here. You don't have to defend your comments or negativity. Whereas all the people in CTM have invested the time to understand the principles, so any questions are coming out of a better foundation. I don't have a concern about it being an echo chamber, as the community is large enough and you always foster healthy debate. So I agree with others that Monday through Friday, CTM live session, and then uploading short edited videos from the CTM live sessions to YouTube and or using them as part of a weekly public session. That's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be driving my kids to school, you know? So I want to make sure that in the morning that I'm able to be there for them to do that. So coming back from that and then preparing and get whatever time I'm going to be going live for CTM, we'll figure that all out. It'll be at a different time for the, you know, going forward, you know, when that's worked out. And then we'll be uploading some videos to the public, maybe some clips, something like that. But we're going to be focused at this particular really crucial time here, the next 4 or 5 months on CTM and CTM only. And then I just wanted to follow this up over here, because the next thing that happened, right, is that Ian, and that's it. And then we're good. All right, everyone. I hope that makes sense for everyone. And it's really appropriately said over here, right? It was by Shane, and he's like, listen, you know, it's going to benefit everyone the most if we do what's best for you, for your health, for the family, and that's for sure. It just keeps getting better and better. Thank you for sharing all this together. I'll see you all tomorrow. All right. Have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you then.